Every single year, the 17th hole at TPC Sawgrass claims like 100,000 golf balls.
Yeah, that's just a staggering number to even think about.
Right. I mean, you aren't just playing your opponents this week. You're playing an island green that feels like it was built entirely for psychological warfare.
Exactly. It's a living, breathing adversary.
It really is. It's designed to make the best athletes on the planet look incredibly foolish. So, welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to decode the chaos, the strategy, and the remarkably high stakes of the 2026 Players' Championship.
Which is just peaking right now.
Yeah, we're right at the critical halfway point, heading into the legendary moving day on Saturday. And we've compiled a massive stack of sources for you. We're pulling from PGA Tour agronomy reports, live weekend leaderboards, deep dive swing analysis, and detailed weather forecasts.
All to understand exactly what it takes to survive, golf's most thrilling test.
Because the gravity of this specific event is, well, it's completely unmatched outside the four traditional majors.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you're looking at a $25 million purse.
Which is insane.
It is. And you have the undisputed strongest field in all of professional golf. Plus, an environment that feels purpose-built from the ground up to just induce total panic.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we can figure out why the world's best players are either completely unraveling or like miraculously succeeding this week, we really have to look closely at the battlefield they're fighting on.
Right, the course itself.
Yeah, and this battlefield is a masterpiece of manipulation. TPC Sawgrass is a Pete Dye design. And, Pete Dye was a golf course architect who was just infamous for visual trickery.
Yeah, the railroad ties, the severe angles.
Exactly. The strategic mounding to mess with your depth perception. He basically wanted to make you actively uncomfortable before you even pulled a club out of your bag.
And the raw numbers alone are staggering. 17 of the 18 holes have water in play.
Wow. 17.
Yeah, and there are 92 bunkers scattered across the property. But what's making 2026 so incredibly diabolical is the specific course setup. Players are literally comparing the conditions to a major championship.
Which, I mean, the agronomy reports really tell the whole story there.
They really do. The greens are this grass type called Poa Trivialis, and they are already rolling at a 13.5 on the Stimpmeter.
It's somebody putting on glass.
It basically is. And by Monday of tournament week, reports indicated these greens were already turning brown and firming up.
Which changes everything, right?
Oh, completely. That firmness fundamentally alters the underlying physics of how the course is played. Pete Dye designed Sawgrass with very small, heavily tiered greens. They average only about, 5,500 square feet.
Right. So when a green like that is soft, an elite player can just throw a high iron shot at the flagstick, and the ball will stop dead.
Exactly. But when that Poa Trivialis is baked out and firm like it is now, approach shots just don't stop. They took these massive knee-high bounces.
So you aren't just aiming at a flag anymore.
Not at all. You have to calculate the trajectory, the spin rate, and the exact firmness of a microscopic landing zone just to keep the ball on the putting surface.
And God forbid you miss the fairway trying to find those specific angles. I mean, the rough this year is ryegrass, and it's measuring over 4 inches thick.
With some reports saying it'll push past 6 inches by Sunday.
Which is just brutal. I want to talk about the actual mechanics of that. Like, what happens when a club hits that kind of rough?
Well, when a club head traveling at, say, 120 miles an hour enters 4 inches of dense, moist ryegrass, the grass blades physically grab the neck of the club first.
Oh, so it twists it.
Exactly. It acts like a brake on the heel of the club, which violently snaps the toe closed. It completely eliminates a player's ability to put backspin on the golf ball.
Assuming they can even make contact with the ball at all in that stuff.
Right. And historically, the average winning score at the Players is around 15 under par. The course usually lets you score if your game is dialed in. But this year, that thick rough changes a missed fairway from just a minor inconvenience into a full shot penalty.
You literally cannot advance the ball toward the green.
No, you're physically forced to take your medicine and just hack the ball out sideways back into the fairway.
It's basically an exercise in game theory. Playing TPC Sawgrass this year is like sitting at a blackjack table where the dealer's showing a face card, but instead of just losing your initial bet if you bust, the casino gets to take your car keys.
That is exactly what it feels like.
The penalty for missing is just wildly disproportionate to the risk. The moment a player gets greedy and goes flag hunting from the wrong position, the course snaps the trap shut.
It really does.
But looking at the agronomy reports, I have to ask, are we seeing a deliberate attempt by the PGA Tour to weaponize the grass? I mean, it feels like they're making the conditions this brutal just to force the public to finally accept this tournament as a fifth major.
Well, the tour has heavily pushed that major narrative for years. And, setting up the course to expose any slight weakness is exactly how you validate that claim.
We have to make it hurt.
Right. If you want a tournament to be viewed in the same breath as a U.S. Open or a PGA Championship, you eliminate the possibility of faking it, you firm up the greens so approach shots demand perfection, and you grow out the rough so driving accuracy is absolutely mandatory.
So whether this specific setup is a deliberate marketing strategy or simply a desire to push the best field in golf to its absolute limit, the margin for error out there this week is practically zero.
Basically zero, yeah.
So if the course itself demands absolute physical perfection, what happens when a player enters this arena physically compromised? Because we're seeing this play out in real time with the defending champion, Rory McIlroy.
Oh, yeah. Rory's presence on the leaderboard this week honestly defies standard sports medicine.
It really does. I mean, he's trying to defend his 2025 title. But just last week, he suffered severe back spasms while warming up in the gym. He had to withdraw from the Arnold Palmer Invitational.
He didn't even arrive on the grounds at Sawgrass until Wednesday afternoon.
Right, and our sources note he hit a grand total of about 30 practice balls before the tournament started.
Which is unheard of.
And he didn't hit a single club longer than a 6-iron in his prep. He's openly relying on muscle relaxers just to get to the first tee.
But what's fascinating here is that making the cut under those physical conditions is astounding. I mean, he was fighting a balky putter and terrible chipping issues all week.
Yeah, his short game was a mess.
But on his final hole on Friday, the par 5 ninth, he buried a clutch 31-foot 2-putt birdie to finish exactly on the cut line at 1 over par.
I was watching his drives on Friday, and despite the visible discomfort, he is still bombing the ball past the rest of the field. It's almost like his body is just running on pure unconscious muscle memory to bypass the back pain. But how is that mechanically possible when the golf swing requires so much rotational force from the core?
Well, you're looking at the power of deeply ingrained neural pathways in a generational athlete. When someone has honed a specific kinetic sequence for decades, the large muscle groups know exactly what to do.
They just take over.
Exactly. The biomechanical sequence of his full swing is so established that he can still generate massive clubhead speed even when his core is compromised. His body finds a way to deliver the club face.
Wow.
But where the lack of preparation actually shows up is in the fine motor skills. The delicate, tactile touch required for chipping out of thick rough, or the microcalibrations needed for putting on those 13.5 speed greens, those require daily repetition.
Right, the stuff you lose when you can't practice.
Exactly. Because he couldn't practice, his touch around the greens completely vanished, even while his raw power remained totally intact.
So what does this all mean? It's essentially like showing up for a postgraduate final exam in quantum physics without studying, without sleeping, and you still manage to pass purely because you understand the core foundational concepts better than anyone else in the room.
That's a great way to put it. His baseline of physical talent is just that high.
It's wild.
And that foundational ability kept him alive. But while Rory is visibly fighting his physical body, the world number one, Scottie Scheffler, is fighting a silent, arguably much more complex battle.
Yeah, against his own mind.
Against his own mind and his own mechanics, yeah.
Which is crazy for the 2023 and 2024 champion.
Right.
Like Rory, Scheffler also barely made the cut at 1 over par. He needed a highly dramatic birdie on the 18th hole on Friday just to survive into the weekend.
Barely squeezed in.
Yeah. But Scheffler isn't dealing with back spasms. Our deep dive analysis shows he's suffering from a sudden, bizarre iron deficiency.
Which is mathematically shocking. His iron play is historically his absolute superpower.
Right.
The strokes gain data this week shows he has plummeted to 47th in strokes gain approach. Last year, he was ranked first in that exact same category. He was consistently beating the field by over a stroke and a quarter per round just on his approach shots alone.
It's a huge drop.
A drop from first to 47th for a player of his caliber is a massive statistical anomaly.
Well, we looked at the broadcast analysis from Brandel Chambly and Paul McGinley, and they noticed something completely out of character. They mapped Scheffler's backswing, and it's suddenly 1.5 feet shorter than it was last year.
1.5 feet is huge in a golf swing.
Huge. And the club face is visibly wide open at the top of the swing. McGinley explicitly attributed this mechanical flaw to anxiety. He noted that Scheffler's historical bad miss is a pull to the left.
And at Sawgrass.
Right, virtually all the devastating water hazards are sitting directly on the left side of the greens.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the biomechanics of anxiety and high-pressure performance are fascinating. In precision sports, peak execution relies heavily on a free-flowing subconscious motion.
You just have to trust it.
Right. The brain trusts the body to execute a complex sequence of movements automatically. But the moment fear enters the equation, specifically the fear of the water on the left, the conscious mind attempts to seize control of the body.
It overrides the system.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The player stops swinging freely and tries to manually steer or poke the golf ball away from the hazard.
But wait, are we really buying the anxiety narrative for the world number one? I mean, this is a guy with ice in his veins who has dominated the sport relentlessly. It seems crazy to think he's suddenly terrified of a pond.
Well, it isn't a conscious, trembling fear. It's a subconscious protective mechanism. When you try to manually steer a golf club to avoid a left miss, your brain instinctively tells your arms to shorten the backswing to feel more in control.
I see.
But in doing so, you completely destroy the kinematic sequence because the swing is shorter, the hips clear too early, the arms get stuck behind the body, and the club face stays wide open.
So you make the bad shot inevitable.
The irony is that by trying to consciously avoid the mistake, you mechanically guarantee a poor strike.
That reminds me of like a veteran race car driver suddenly tapping the brakes on a straightaway just because they vividly remember a terrible crash that happened on that exact stretch of track 5 years ago.
That's exactly it.
The conscious mind knows exactly how to drive the car, but the body reacts involuntarily to the spatial memory of the danger.
The environment is triggering the response. TPC Sawgrass is doing exactly what it was built to do. It's bypassing the player's physical talent and actively attacking their nervous systems.
Okay, so if physical pain is severely limiting Rory and mechanical anxiety is handcuffing Scottie, what is the actual antidote? Because there are players out there currently dismantling this golf course.
Yeah, we need to look at Xander Scheffler and Ludvig Åberg.
Yes, who are offering two completely different masterclasses on how to survive.
They represent two distinct philosophies for handling extreme pressure. Let's look at Xander first. He shot 65 on Friday to reach 10 under par.
But how he got there is the crazy part. On Thursday, his driving was just atrocious. He hit only 5 of 14 fairways.
Which is terrible.
Right, in 4-inch ryegrass, missing 9 fairways is a total disaster. So what does he do? He holds a twilight driving range session with his swing coach, Chris Como.
And Xander explicitly asked his team to spoon-feed him simple swing thoughts. He didn't want TrackMan numbers. He didn't want complex geometry. He wanted one singular feeling.
And the result? On Friday, he stepped up and hit 14 out of 14 fairways. Absolute perfection.
That is the power of rapid, targeted technical calibration. Elite coaches understand that under intense pressure, giving a player too much data just causes paralysis by analysis.
You overcomplicate it.
Right. Xander recognized the mechanical flaw. His coach isolated the simplest possible structural fix, and Xander executed it. He relied on structural discipline to regain control of his game before the bad round could spiral into a missed cut.
Incredible.
But then you have 26-year-old Ludvig Åberg, who is employing an entirely different strategy altogether.
Yeah, Åberg shot a 63 on Friday, including a ridiculous 29 on the front 9. The analyst covering his round described his demeanor as an emotional flatline.
Emotional flatline. I love that.
And, well, here's where it gets really interesting for you listening. Think about your own default reaction to intense pressure. Are you a grinder who pushes through the pain like Rory? Or do you freeze up mechanically like Scottie?
That's a great question.
Because Åberg's icy calmness is wild compared to the carnage happening around him. Look at poor Tom Hoge on hole number 7.
Oh, man. The 7th hole was a perfect illustration of the course breaking a player's spirit.
It was tough to watch. Hoge suffered a spectacular nationally televised quintuple bogey 9. He hits his tee shot directly into the water, takes a penalty drop. Then he completely tops his next shot. Then he shanks his 4th shot.
It was a complete cascading system failure.
The course baits you into a mistake, and the moment you let frustration seep in, it compounds that mistake exponentially.
But Åberg entirely bypasses that snowball effect through psychological detachment. His parasympathetic nervous system never seems to spike.
He just stays level.
He treats a terrifying shot over the water on the 17th hole with the exact same emotional weight as a 2-foot tap-in on the practice green. A bad shot simply does not exist past the moment it's struck.
Wow.
He navigates a course built to induce panic by strictly refusing to participate in the panic.
It's brilliant to watch.
Yeah.
We have seen exactly who is breaking and who is thriving through the first 2 days. But heading into the weekend, moving into Saturday and Sunday, our weather sources guarantee that this golf course has one last trick up its sleeve.
Oh, absolutely. The elements are about to introduce total chaos.
Yeah, the meteorological shifts will demand 2 entirely different styles of play. Saturday, moving day, is forecasted to feature those firm, baked-out greens coupled with a steady northeast wind blowing at 10 to 16 miles per hour.
And a northeast wind at Sawgrass changes the aerodynamics of the closing holes completely, making the 17th island green play directly crosswind. It'll dry the course out even further.
And then, Sunday brings a massive, dramatic pivot, a 60% chance of steady rain and thunderstorms. We're looking at potential weather delays, and the course will turn into a soft, muddy slog.
Which requires extreme mental and physical adaptability. A player cannot rely on a single game plan this weekend.
Yep.
On Saturday, they have to play calculating defensive chess, playing the wind, calculating the firm bounce, and accepting pars. But on Sunday, when the rain softens the greens, the ball will stop exactly where it lands.
Huh.
It turns into a heavyweight boxing match where players have to aggressively throw darts at the flag sticks in the mud to keep up with the scoring.
This brings everything right back to you, the listener. We all eventually face our own TPC Sawgrass moments in life.
For sure.
We step into environments, maybe it's a high-stakes board presentation, a deeply difficult negotiation, or a major life transition that feel perfectly engineered to expose our deepest weaknesses and test our nerve. The hazards are everywhere, and the margins for error are razor thin.
And the question is, how do you handle it?
Exactly. When that pressure mounts, what is your default mechanism? Do you grind through the friction and rely on your core foundation, like Rory? Do you let the anxiety alter your mechanics and overthink the execution, like Scottie?
Or do you seek targeted, simplified help from a mentor to rapidly correct your course, like Xander?
Or, do you embrace the emotional flatline and detach from the panic entirely, like Ludvig Åberg?
It really is a phenomenal mirror for human behavior under stress. And looking at the sheer architectural warfare of this golf course raises a fascinating question about the future of the sport itself.
No, so?
Well, we spend so much time analyzing how modern technology titanium drivers optimize golf balls and extreme athletic training is overpowering classic golf courses.
Right, players are hitting it further and straighter than ever before in human history.
Exactly. So as physical advantages continue to increase, is Pete Dye's model of psychological warfare the only tool golf course architects have left to defend par?
That's a great point.
If you can no longer beat the modern professional with pure distance, maybe the only way to challenge them is to build an arena that actively attacks their minds. And frankly, it makes you wonder about the whole debate over whether the Players is an official major or not.
Right. Does the label even matter at this point?
Exactly. If a tournament forces you to beat the absolute strongest field in the sport, survive schizophrenic Florida weather, and navigate a course built entirely for psychological warfare, does it matter if it's officially called a major? Or does surviving this specific patch of grass validate a champion more than a traditional title ever could?
It really makes you wonder what the courses of the future will actually look like. Will they just become giant psychological escape rooms with grass?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you are standing on that 17th tee box, staring down an island green surrounded by the ghosts of 100,000 sunken golf balls, the course doesn't care how far you can hit it.
Not one bit.
The arena isn't just a backdrop anymore. It's looking right back at you, waiting to see if you blink. Enjoy the weekend, everyone.